Welcome to this deep dive into the world of Steve Jobs and the rise of Apple. We'll be exploring Walter Isaacson's biography, a book absolutely packed with insights about the man behind some of the most iconic tech we use today. So get ready to uncover the stories behind his relentless pursuit of perfection, his sometimes difficult personality, and the legacy he left behind.
It's really interesting how Jobs' journey actually started long before Apple ever existed. His upbringing in Silicon Valley, during his tech boom, played a significant role in shaping him.
You're absolutely right. And Isaacson, he really digs deep into how Jobs' adoptive father, Paul, who was a mechanic, really shaped his early years.
Yeah, Paul instilled a love for tinkering in Jobs and also a really keen eye for spotting value. There's this great story about Paul actually teaching Steve how to negotiate for car parts
Yeah.
at junkyards, which might have sparked that business acumen that we see later on.
That's such a good point. It wasn't just about taking things apart, right? It was about understanding their worth, too. But what about the minimalist design aspect? We know Jobs was obsessed with it, and Isaacson talks about those Eichler homes, right? What was so special about them?
The Eichler homes, with their clean lines and focus on functionality, they really resonated with Jobs. He saw a philosophy there that good design should be accessible, not just for the wealthy. And this idea is reflected so clearly in Apple products. They're beautiful, easy to use, and ultimately aimed at a wider market.
So we've got this foundation of Silicon Valley, right? This love for tinkering, this fascination with minimalist design. Then comes the whole counterculture phase. Jobs drops out of Reed College. He experiments with LSD, delves into Zen Buddhism, even travels to India. It seems like a detour. But did these experiences actually end up influencing his approach to tech and design?
Absolutely they did. These experiences were crucial in shaping his worldview. His exploration of Eastern spirituality, the whole counterculture movement, it fueled his unconventional thinking and his drive to constantly challenge norms. Jobs, he was always pushing boundaries, refusing to be confined by tradition.
Yeah, that rebellious streak really comes through in his work at Atari. Isaacson talks about Jobs and Wozniak creating that game breakout in just 4 days, which, I mean, come on, that showcases Jobs' brilliance for sure, but also maybe a somewhat flexible approach to ethics. He kept the bonus for using fewer chips, leaving Wozniak completely in the dark.
Yeah, that incident really gives you a glimpse into the complexity of his character. He was a visionary genius, sure, but with sometimes questionable moral compass. It's this blend of brilliance and flaws that makes him so intriguing.
It's almost like all these different elements, the energy of Silicon Valley, the love for tinkering, the fascination with minimalist design, and that rebellious spirit. It's like they all came together to create the perfect storm for Apple's birth.
You could say that, yeah. And let's not forget the Homebrew Computer Club, that gathering of hobbyists and future tech giants. It was a real hotbed for the personal computing revolution.
Right, a time when computers were like these massive machines hidden away in corporate basements. The Homebrew Computer Club, they saw a future where computers were accessible to everyone, empowering individuals to create and connect. This seems pretty crucial to understanding the spirit of Apple's early days.
Definitely. This is where the Apple I was born. Jobs even sold his Volkswagen bus to fund it. And Wozniak, he parted with his HP calculator. It was a leap of faith, fueled by their shared belief in the power of personal computing.
And from that leap of faith, the Apple I emerged. But to get to the Macintosh, we need to understand this reality distortion field that Isaacson keeps talking about. What exactly was it?
Well, think of it as Jobs' ability to bend reality, to achieve his goals, to convince others to see the world as he did. It was this mix of charisma, willpower, and let's be honest, a bit of selective truth-telling.
So was it more about inspiration or manipulation?
Well, Jobs, he could really inspire people to believe in the impossible, to push beyond their limits, just by sheer force of personality. And this reality distortion field, it played a huge role in the development of the Macintosh.
Right. He envisioned a computer that was not only powerful, but also beautiful and really user-friendly. Isaacson talks about Jobs just obsessing over tiny details like the thickness of lines and icons, and even the look of title bars.
Exactly. For Jobs, it was about crafting this complete experience,
No.
both functional and emotionally satisfying.
But to achieve that, he pushed his team relentlessly, often blurring the lines between inspiration and, well, manipulation. Isaacson mentions Jobs constantly shifting deadlines to create urgency and keep everyone on edge. What was it like working under that pressure?
It was a pressure cooker, that's for sure. Fueled by Jobs' conviction that they were on a mission to change the world. That kind of intensity, it can be exhilarating and exhausting at the same time.
And that pressure, it led to clashes. particularly with the Lisa team. Jobs, having been ousted from that project, he really wanted to prove them wrong, to make the Macintosh the future. How did that rivalry shape the development of both projects?
The competition between the two teams, it became so fierce. It pushed both groups to their limits. But it also kind of exposed a less flattering side of Jobs' leadership style.
Yeah.
He wasn't afraid to pit people against each other, to foster this win-or-lose mentality.
So amidst all this chaos and rivalry, the Mac team, they managed to ship the Macintosh, pulling off what seemed like a miracle. Isaacson, he describes those final weeks as just this whirlwind of all-nighters and exhaustion.
It's really a testament to the team's dedication, but also to Jobs' vision and his knack for inspiring people to achieve what seemed impossible. But just shipping the product, that was only the first step. To really conquer the market, Jobs, he needed to sell the Macintosh. And that's where his marketing genius truly shines.
Speaking of marketing genius, that 1984 Super Bowl commercial, it's iconic. How did Jobs use that to position Apple and the Macintosh?
Well, that commercial, directed by Ridley Scott, I mean, it was a masterclass in storytelling. It really captured the public's imagination, positioning Apple as this rebellious underdog, challenging the establishment. The Macintosh, it wasn't just a computer anymore. It was a symbol of liberation, almost like a weapon against conformity.
It's amazing how he transformed a product launch into this massive cultural event. The Macintosh, it was a triumph, but as with any good story, there were twists ahead. Jobs' departure from Apple, the founding of NXT, these weren't just setbacks, were they?
Not at all. Jobs' time at NXT, even though it wasn't commercially successful, it was incredibly important. It allowed him to kind of refine his vision, to experiment with new ideas, and to develop the NXT Step operating system, which, as you know, would eventually form the foundation for Mac OS X.
So it was almost like a period of refinement, a chance for him to step back and reevaluate his approach. And that return to Apple, what a comeback story. The company was struggling. And Jobs just, boom, he manages to turn everything around.
Yeah, his impact was immediate and decisive. He streamlined operations, cut product lines, and brought back that laser focus on design and innovation. You know, that had defined Apple's early days. It was during this time that his collaboration with Jony Ive really took off, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Jobs, the visionary, and Ive, this design genius, together they created a series of groundbreaking products, the iMac, the iPod, the iPhone, the iPad. Each one a game changer in its own right. But what was it about their partnership that made it so successful? What did they bring to the table that others just didn't?
I think they understood that technology, it shouldn't just be functional. It should be beautiful, intuitive, almost like an extension of the user. Jobs, he had that vision, and Ive, he had this incredible ability to translate those ideas into physical form.
Isaacson describes them spending hours in the design studio just obsessing over prototypes, constantly pushing each other towards perfection. That kind of dedication, it's inspiring, but it also makes you wonder, was there ever a point where they disagreed?
Oh, absolutely. Their relationship, it wasn't always harmonious. They both had strong personalities and were so passionate about their work. But their disagreements often led to even better ideas, pushing them to think outside the box. One of the most significant things they did was to shift the balance of power at Apple, giving designers more control over engineering.
So before Jobs returned, it was all about cramming as much tech into a product as possible. But Jobs and Ive, they prioritized design. They understood that a truly great product, it had to be both beautiful and functional.
Exactly. The iMac is a perfect example. Those colorful, translucent, all-in-one computers, they were such a radical departure from the beige boxes that everyone was used to. They revitalized Apple's image and were one of the first computers to ditch the floppy drive and embrace USB.
That was a really risky move, but it paved the way for a more connected future. And then came the iPod, a tiny device that revolutionized how we listen to music. It seems so simple now, but at the time, 1,000 songs in your pocket. That must sound crazy.
Yeah, when Jobs first presented the idea, even his own team was skeptical. But he was determined. He demanded a device that was not only technologically advanced, but also incredibly user-friendly. Remember that click wheel? Simple, yet brilliant.
It's amazing how Jobs had this almost intuitive sense of what consumers wanted, even before they knew it themselves. The iPod, it wasn't just a product, it was a cultural phenomenon. It led to the iTunes store and changed the music industry forever.
And let's not forget Apple's foray into retail. When Jobs announced plans for Apple stores, a lot of people thought it was a mistake. They really doubted that people would want to visit a store dedicated to just one brand.
Yeah, but Jobs, he envisioned a retail experience that was as meticulously crafted as the products themselves. He wanted to control every detail, from the store design to the way employees interacted with customers.
And it worked. Apple stores, they became these iconic destinations, and people went there not just to buy products, but to learn, to get help, to connect with other Apple enthusiasts. The Genius Bar, I mean, that was a genius idea, providing a place for personalized support. It really turned Apple stores into community hubs.
Okay, so we've got the iMac, the iPod, Apple stores, and then boom comes the iPhone. It's safe to say the iPhone changed the world, right?
Absolutely. The iPhone, it was the culmination of everything Jobs had been working towards. It was beautifully designed, powerful, and so easy to use. It put the internet in everyone's pocket.
And the development process was just as remarkable. Isaacson mentions Jobs rejecting the original iPhone design because it felt too masculine and it didn't prioritize the display.
That decision, I mean, to go back to the drawing board just months before launch, it speaks volumes about Jobs' dedication to perfection. He was willing to take huge risks if it meant achieving his vision.
And that risk, it paid off big time. The iPhone, it became this global phenomenon. It set the standard for all smartphones that followed. Then came the iPad, a device that was initially met with a lot of skepticism, but ultimately ushered in the era of tablet computing.
Yeah, Jobs insisted on a touch-based interface,
Hmm.
famously dismissing the stylus. He wanted technology to be as natural and intuitive as possible, and the iPad delivered on that promise, offering a new way to experience content.
But Jobs' desire for control, for creating this closed ecosystem, it also drew criticism. Some accused him of, well, being a control freak, of stifling innovation. What's your take on that? Was it just about control, or was there something more to it?
I think it was more about Jobs' deep belief in the importance of the user experience.
Yeah.
He wanted Apple products to be seamlessly integrated, from the hardware to the software to the content. He was really willing to fight to make that happen, even if it meant being perceived as controlling.
And those fights sometimes became very public, like with AntennaGate. People were having issues with dropped calls on the iPhone 4 because of the antenna design, and Jobs initially seemed defensive, almost dismissive of the problem.
Yeah, it was a rare instance where his normally flawless intuition just seemed to fail him.
Yeah.
However, he eventually acknowledged the issue
Yeah.
and offered a solution. It was a moment of humility from someone who is often seen as arrogant.
It's these contradictions that make Jobs such a fascinating figure, right? He was brilliant, inspiring, but also demanding, and at times really harsh.
That's true. He was a master of innovation, but also fiercely protective of his own vision. But, while he was revolutionizing the tech world, he was also building something else, this empire in the world of animation with Pixar.
Right. His involvement with Pixar, it started back in the mid-'80s. It seems like it was more than just a business deal for him.
Oh, absolutely. Jobs, he had this deep passion for storytelling. He believed in the power of animation. He poured his heart and soul into Pixar, giving John Lasseter and his team the resources and the creative freedom to create these groundbreaking films like Toy Story, Finding Nemo, The Incredibles.
And those films, they weren't just blockbusters. They were critical successes, pushing the boundaries of animation, winning Oscars. But there was also this ongoing battle with Disney, right? Like this clash of titans over creative control and distribution.
Yes, it was. It was a fascinating rivalry between Jobs and Michael Eisner, Disney's CEO at the time. They were both visionary leaders, but with very, very different approaches. Jobs, he championed creative freedom and risk-taking, while Eisner, he was more focused on protecting Disney's legacy.
Right.
And maintaining control.
It seems like their clashing philosophies, they inevitably led to that dramatic break. When Jobs announced that Pixar was ending negotiations with Disney, that was a huge gamble.
Well, it was. But Jobs was confident that Pixar had built a brand strong enough to stand on its own. And he was right. Pixar continued to produce hit after hit, proving its creative power. And then, in a real twist, Disney came back with a new CEO, Bob Iger, who recognized Pixar's value and was willing to give Jobs and Lasseter the creative control they wanted.
And that led to Disney's acquisition of Pixar, a deal that made Jobs Disney's largest shareholder. It's a remarkable story of resilience and a reminder that creative vision can prevail, even in a world that's driven by profits.
It certainly is. But as Jobs was reaching these new heights of success, his health was declining. Isaacson's biography, it details his battle with pancreatic cancer, his struggle with his own mortality, and his incredible determination to keep working.
It's a poignant reminder that even the most brilliant minds, they aren't invincible. Despite facing death, Jobs continued to innovate. The iPad, unveiled just months before his passing, it seems like a fitting culmination of his career.
Yeah, it really does. It embodies his vision of technology as a tool for creativity, communication,
Mm-hmm.
and connection. Even in his weakened state, Jobs was there to unveil it, delivering one last captivating keynote address.
So as we conclude this deep dive into the life of Steve Jobs, what stands out to you? Was he a visionary genius, a ruthless control freak, or a complex mix of both?
Jobs was undoubtedly a complex figure. He reshaped industries, built one of the most valuable companies in the world, and inspired generations. His legacy, it's full of contradictions, brilliance and flaws, inspiration and ruthlessness.
What's clear is that he left an unforgettable mark on the world. His story continues to fascinate and inspire, reminding us of the power of vision, the importance of design, and the relentless pursuit of excellence.
Yeah, he pushed boundaries, challenged conventions, and ultimately changed the way we live and interact with the world. Even today, his influence, it can be felt in the devices we use
Mm.
and the technology that surrounds us.
That's a great point. So, as you go about your day-to-day, think about the technology you use and remember the man who played such a pivotal role in shaping it, Steve Jobs, the visionary, the rebel, the genius who changed the world. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.